Hello, I'm Egan. Perhaps all of us have a passion for football, but to me the ball is an unforgettable obsession. My family is Protestant, of course. I don't believe in evil, but my mind has changed since I had an incident in my last year of high school. From an early age, I have shown my athletic ability. Unlike other children, I enjoy playing underwater. That's why my parents signed me up for a swimming class. By the end of the elementary school, I mastered swimming. Of course, when I was in high school, although I was busier, I still didn't give up my passion. I joined a swimming club. To try my best, I also registered to compete in amateur competitions and luckily got some outstanding achievements. It can be said that I am a person who loves to challenge myself, so on a nice day I decided to pause swimming to switch to a new topic. With the permission of my parents, I joined Lion 2, a football club which was also quite famous in the school. Although I had to start everything at zero, I really liked that new feeling. I energetically asked my parents to buy me a super good pair of soccer shoes, but at the first training session I was allowed to sit on the bench and watch my team members play. Of course, the new shoes also did not step into any grass from the football field. I went home that day feeling very depressed. I remembered the feeling of being a star when I was at the swimming club. With football, I was nothing. But thanks to the encouragement of my family, I quickly regained my spirit. The enthusiasm to conquer my limits was arising again. At the second training session, luckily I was allowed to play and start being trained. It turned out that the new members were to sit on the bench to test their patience and will to learn, and that it was also an occasion to observe the old members and draw their own lessons. If I had given up the day before and not stayed to the team, I would probably be ashamed by now. At this training session, I began to realize I had a lot of limitations. Unlike swimming, training skills from childhood makes everything simpler. As for football, it was all new. When I watched the television, I thought the controlling ball was simple as spreading your arms and swimming, but the truth was, it was much harder. But instead of being bored and wanting to give up like the first day I came to the Lion 2, I was more determined to conquer it. After practice sessions with the team, I usually stayed another 2 hours to review what I had learned and left when it was already dark. At first there were a few new numbers eager to join in practice, but gradually they gave up and eventually I was alone. But it was still fine. Practicing soccer alone made me more free and comfortable because no one could see me. I always believed that I was definitely the last to leave. However, one day I realized I was not the only one. I saw a figure who was training as hard as me in the opposite field. I thought in my mind, should I ask him to play with me? But after a few seconds of observing his professional playing style, I immediately erased that intention, because I thought that my slowness would annoy him a lot. The weird thing was that whenever I stayed late, I would see him. The boy in the opposite field even practiced extremely hard and enthusiastically without a moment of rest. Although I had met him many times, I still could not see the face of him, because that corner was quite dark. I had no idea why he didn't go to a brighter place to play football. But that was not what I cared about. The only thing I paid attention to was the ability to control the ball of a friend on the opposite field. As a newcomer to the Lion 2 team, I was not really sure if the person was in my club or not, but I could assure you that he was a very potential striker. Although I did not dare to approach or start talking to him, I did not know when the friend in the opposite field became the motivation to help me conquer the round ball. I had to confess that I had secretly followed that person and later learned many tricks. Thanks to that, my skills were improved much more. Many seniors in the club were extremely surprised by my progress. Although we have seen each other many times, but it was not until the night of the 8th or the 9th on the football field that I really had my first interaction with that friend in the opposite field. That day when I was practicing, I accidentally kicked the ball hard and it flew to the opposite side of the football field. Then I saw the ball rolling towards him. He stopped. I did not dare to speak. And after 15 minutes, that weird friend started moving and went to the ball, picked it up and threw it to me. Somehow, his hand movements were very gentle, but the ball flew far away, over the high fence like kicking with his feet. I didn't really care about the weirdness. I hurriedly took my ball and thanked my friend at the opposite field, but the person didn't respond, coldly returning to continue his training. At that time, I simply thought that he must be eccentric, unapproachable. I put the ball in the bag and came back home because it was already dark. The next day, I practiced kicking the ball into the golf course, but my feet kept disobeying by kicking with the excess of strength. The ball continuously flew over the fence to the opposite field. Strangely, every time, the boy returned the ball to me without a complaint and, of course, didn't care at all about my thanks or hellos or goodbyes. That day, because the practice was too intense, it was not known at all hours. Luckily, I was near the entrance, so I figured it would be time to be locked up for the night. As I hurried up, cleaned up, I remembered my friend in the opposite field. Looking over, it turned out he was just like me, forgetting the closing time of the training ground. In order to repay his kindness, I immediately asked the security guard for 5 minutes more. So I walked towards that person. It seems that he also noticed that someone was approaching him and he stopped. Because he was standing in a light blocking position, so it was unable for a nearsighted person to see clearly from afar, I just relied on the shadow to follow the boy. But when I approached, I did not see the shadow of the person anymore. Looking over the side, I saw a ball rolling from the corner of the alley. A cold breeze from somewhere rushed and made the back of my spine unconsciously cool. I instinctively grabbed the rolling ball. As I hugged the ball, my head hit someone's chest. I did not expect this boy to have such a solid and tall body. However, that admiration was immediately suppressed when I looked upwards. I was startled when I found out the terrifying thing in front of me. The big man didn't have a head. Meanwhile, his body still moved like a normal person. He reached out his hand forward as if signaling me to give him the ball back. At this time, my body was trembling with fear. Sweat was drenched all over my shirt. My limbs were soft, teeth were clenched, trying to keep my mind as awake as possible. But as soon as he looked down, the calmness immediately reached its limit. The object in my hand right now was not a ball anymore, but a human head. Unable to suppress my emotions, I involuntarily let out a scream, then threw the head to the ground and my legs trembled backwards. But unfortunately, while I tried to escape, I stumbled on a barrier. The body that had lost all strength immediately fell down and lost consciousness after that. The next morning I woke up on my beloved bed. It took me a week to get rid of my obsession and return to normal. And on the first day back to school, I was summoned by the police to testify for a case. It turned out, after the day I lost consciousness in the football field, the people who worked there smelled the stench. After searching, they discovered a body crammed under an old warehouse containing the equipment of the soccer field in a state of decapitation. It seemed that the corpse was of a male student my age. The perpetrator was charged when police gathered enough evidence at the scene as well as verification based on cameras around the area. According to the police investigation, the victim was a member of the Lion 2 team and the male student was killed by his own team member because of a personal conflict. That incident became my obsession. I couldn't continue playing football nor return to swimming, partly because of these terrible things I've encountered. And I'm also a senior. I need to focus on my studies anyway.